the loving act of kindness that you are showing to yourselves tonight is fantastic, because actually just coming to a talk about being your own best friend takes a lot of guts. You know, it takes a lot of courage to walk up the steps and even think about, am I my own best friend? So first of all, thank you for doing that, because the work that we do in here, the work that we do in this room, I think there's 32 of us here, 31, that is the work that will make a huge, huge difference in the world. And it's not about this becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and, you know, becoming the TED Talks with thousands. If this stays at a pack of 50 people or 30 people and we grow inside, the effect that we will have is... So I wanted to start tonight, I mean, the talk is, it is time to be your own best friend. And that title came to me. The work that I do, for some of you that know, is about loving and cherishing the skin that you're in. And that message has kept coming back to me again and again and again and again with every spiritual text I read, with every message that I get. The core thing has to come back to self-love. You can study all of the law of attraction you want, you can do all of these things, but if you are not loving and cherishing who you are, you don't get that far, and you keep coming back to the same thing. So for those of you who are wondering why it's important that you love and cherish who you are and why you're your own best friend, it's because without that, none of this makes sense. None of it. None of it makes sense when you look into your child's eyes and they cannot see that you love who you are, because they are reflecting back who part of you to them. So for the sake of everybody in your life, of everybody that you love, going inside and loving who you are and becoming your own best friend is key. Now I wanted to start by reading a poem which kind of epitomizes where I was about 6 years ago, and it's something that for those of you that might be, because this is about you, my intention for tonight is that you will leave with a spark or an intention or a desire to just love and cherish who you are that little bit more. What would you do if you knew you could not fail? What dreams would you be willing to build and set sail? The dreams that are inside you, dying to come out, whispering to your heart and beginning to shout. Dreams that have a purpose, a passion, a zeal. Dreams that only you can make, that you can make real. So what will you do with these dreams deep inside? Stuff them down or feed them and let them glide? The world awaits this gift from you and is begging you to start. So allow these dreams to guide you. Simply follow your heart. So the whole essence of it's time to be your own best friend is also very much about it's the present moment, and there's never a time when it's not important for you to be your best friend. Because in every single situation that you're in, whether you're, you know, things have stuffed up at work, or you're in the middle of a row with your husband or your wife or whatever, that is the moment, and it's the only time that you can actually be your own best friend. Now, one of those friends I was talking about earlier said to me about 6 years ago, Bernie, you are your own worst enemy. And it really shocked me to the core. And so I started this inquiry, and this was actually about 7 years ago, so I started this inquiry, and it started to very, very gently unravel all parts of who I was. And then 6 years ago I had what I can only describe as a breakthrough. And I looked up yesterday the definition of a breakdown, because I was kind of, you know, a lot of people get very, you know, unclear about mental health, depression, breakdowns, breakthroughs. And the difference between a mental breakdown and a spiritual breakthrough is that when you have a breakdown, every single belief system that you have comes crashing to the floor. Everything that you thought was real suddenly doesn't seem real anymore. And sometimes all these emotions that come up can be so overwhelming that you can shut them down, that somebody else shuts them down, and you never get to go past that. You kind of get stuck in the numb, and you might get given lots of medication, and you might be told you'll be fine, you'll be fine, you'll be fine, and you get back on that numb train. Fortunately for me, that didn't happen. I knew that something deeper was happening. The inquiry that had started about a year before, and I was witness to this inquiry that was happening inside of me. And sort of 4 or 5 days later, I had the most incredible spiritual awakening that rocked me to the core, and I realised that I was actually breaking through all the lies that I told myself, all the lies that I had absorbed myself about life. And in that difference, I see the beauty in absolutely getting back to the principles of loving and cherishing who you are. Because it's so easy for us to just give our power away to somebody else who we think knows better, and to say, you tell me what's wrong with me, you tell me what's right with me. And it simply is not ever going to be the way that you find. So what does not loving and cherishing the skin you're in look like? And what is it that brought me to be standing here in my bare feet talking about this in a building that I had no concept 7 years ago that I would be in? And that is going right back to the story of my life. There's a film, you ever seen it? I think it's 27 Hours or something. The guy with it's quite gory actually, but he gets his arm chopped off. And I remember watching that and resonating with the fact that the spiritual awakening and the crash and the burn that took me into the Priory 6 years ago had been waiting for me my entire life. And not many people want to admit and rejoice about the fact that they spent 6 weeks in a psychiatric hospital, but to me it was almost essential for it was essential for my soul. It was essential that I would go there. It was essential that I would actually follow through this personal inquiry. So as far as long as I can remember, from being born in Northern Ireland in 1969 into the year of the Troubles, I have been searching and searching and searching for something of meaning, for something that didn't have a label, for something that did not need, something that was bigger than me. And I think because I was born into a large Catholic family, anyone who's Catholic in the room will understand the Catholic guilt. And anyone who's not Catholic in the room will sort of not understand the Catholic guilt. And either way, it's very confusing to be a Catholic in Northern Ireland, because you're not Southern Irish and you're Northern Irish, but you're not, you really have very little identity in some sense. So I think for me, that was the perfect place for me to really have to go deeper inside, because, I wasn't born, I didn't remember when I came onto this planet. I didn't remember who I was. I completely forgot. Now, up until the age of 4, you have a sense of remembering, because you look at babies and you see in their eyes something very, very special. You see love. And Marianne Williamson, there's a quote next door that Alison and I were just looking at, and it says, love is what we're born with, fear is what we learn here. And if you think of any little child, and if you think about your own childhood, there was just, you probably, up until the age of 4, everything's just pretty lovely. You're just so in the moment, you're just playing, you don't question it, you're just being. But somewhere after that, you start to absorb all of the things around you. Now, I didn't understand what was going on, but I knew something just didn't feel right after the age of 4, and I didn't have, nothing sinister has happened to me in my life. I haven't been homeless, I haven't had, I have not been a drug addict, I haven't had anything major. But that, in a sense, is actually what makes what happened to me more relevant to everybody that's had a kind of okay, normal kind of life. Because everything was sort of fine. It's fine. You've got a roof over your head, you've got parents that love you, you've got lots of family around, but it's just fine. And you sort of compare yourself to people that are doing incredible things, but that's not for me, because I'm just me. And that's the kind of gut feeling that I know so many people have experienced, and they're searching and searching for something of meaning, but they think that it will come from somewhere else. And so I very quickly, from the age of 4, started to compare myself to every single person that I would encounter. And what I came to realize at the age of 41 is that the energy that I wasted comparing myself to every single friend, foe, whatever, was so draining. And the creativity that I had and the ability to be as a little girl just went way down. And I look back now at that and I just think, wow, well, it's no wonder. because I was using so much energy comparing. I had nothing else to create. And so part of how you can become your own best friend and how you love and cherish the skin that you're in is that you actually start by accepting who you are. You accept who your parents are. You accept everything about your life. And from that, there is a real peace. And that's what I finally got at the age of 41. I started to accept who I was. So going back to what is my message to you, it is tied in with shame. It is tied in with a sense of not good enough. And from as young as I can remember, I didn't know that I didn't feel that I was lovable. I didn't actually know that. I didn't know that, but it was something deep inside of me. And after I came out of the Priory, I would be so curious as to how I could have had this incredible spiritual awakening where, you know, like a road to Damascus moment, and I was basked in the light of the universe, to then a few days later being terrified to say boo to somebody in the, somebody else that kind of sounded a bit cross. And I started to realize that the conditioning that I'd had, that we all have as humans, because we are basically sponges from 0 to 10, had programmed my behavior so much that I didn't even know it was happening. So if I heard somebody speak in a stern voice, it triggered the 4-year-old child that had maybe been told off by her, by a parent once. Or if I met someone who seemed very confident, it would trigger memories of, being bullied at school. And it wasn't me, the grown-up, that was showing up. It was that child that constantly showed up. And she showed up all the way through my relationships as a teenager. She showed up, the little child would show up in a business situation. I remember bursting into tears when a decorator gave me a row. It's like, really? And I'm like, I'm 24, why am I crying like a little girl? Because these things are so programmed inside of you that they actually control you. So for me, the whole search of an inquiry about how could I reconnect to the source that I have experienced in the Priory? How can I reconnect to the divine being that I have discovered inside of me? And the only way I could do that was to go deeper and deeper inside and discover how I could find that voice on a more regular basis. And I realized that voice had been denied to me because of my programming, because of the shame, because of all of those things. Now, leading up to going into the Priory, I remember when that happened, I thought, this is amazing, I'm going to make a film out of this. This is going to be such a great story. I think maybe somebody was playing me, I have no idea. But it just seems so easy that I would have found freedom in discovering what I will call God. Some of you might find that word difficult to absorb, but I understand that. But I was walking along the beach tonight and I suddenly thought, the only reason that I discovered the divine source was inside of me was to surrender to the God that I was almost angry with, to surrender to this being of whatever that I just actually hated for a long time. And the wonderful discovery was that when she actually showed up, she was inside of me. So sometimes, to find the God inside of us, we have to be willing to surrender to the God that we discern, the God that we're not happy with. And when I discovered that part of me was in there, I also realized that I had still an awful lot of cleaning up to do, an awful lot of soul cleaning up to do. And it showed me all of the things about my life that had been wrapped in shame and vulnerability. So I don't know if any of you have heard of Brené Brown's work. I think we were talking to somebody about that the other day. And when I heard Brené Brown do a TEDx talk in 2010 or 2011, it just shook me to the core, because she was talking about the shame that I had locked inside of me. And the reason that I had been my own worst enemy was that I had self-destructed a belief that I was a horrible, horrible person. I got married young. I was ill-prepared for marriage. I was so disconnected from who I was. I had lost track of my identity. I had moving around the country, and I was pretty lost as a wife. So in my 20s, I went out, got drunk, snogged an old family friend, then kept that shame and secret inside of me for 10 years. Now the thing is, for some of you, depending on what your beliefs is, that'll be no big deal, you'll laugh at that. But for somebody who was brought up as a Roman Catholic, even, that was horrific, and it was such a betrayal of who I was. But more damaging was how I did not show up. For the next 10 years, I did not show up because I was so trapped in this shame and so imprisoned by what I considered was the most sinister, horrible thing I could ever do. And it took 10 years for me to have the courage to share that with them. I'm not here to say that if you've got anything to hide from your partner, you've got to go out there and share it with them. That's not what this is about. But what it's about is if whatever that secret that you have inside of you, whatever it is that you have that you're ashamed of, if it stops you from showing up as who you are, if it stops you from looking in the mirror and loving who you see, maybe there's something that you could do to take a step further and take a step towards healing that. Because as I was walking along the beach today, I couldn't believe the thing that I'd yearned for, that I yearned to have a relationship with my husband that was open, no secrets, and that I knew that I deserved to have a relationship where I was not holding back. And I was asking him yesterday, do you feel more loved? And he said, actually, I feel less dependent. And I just think that is so powerful because, there's that whole Hollywood thing of, you complete me. You're my, and I hear lots of people saying it, my better half, my worse half, my other half. And I would like to suggest to you that if you become your own best friend, it doesn't actually matter who you're married to, they will actually suddenly become much more amazing. Because the work that I've done internally, my husband has changed so much. And, it's just that I have done this work inside. And so I look at him and I see something so much more beautiful than I was able to when I was spending all that energy loathing and loathing and loathing and loathing and loathing myself. So for the benefit of everyone around, it's a win-win. Now I was so terrified to reveal that to him that it tied me up in circles and it would spin a web that would affect my relationships with my brother, with other friends, with parents, with everything. It just, wherever I went, I kept coming to this shameful thing. So much so that eventually it just was not sustainable. And I'm so grateful that it isn't, because by suddenly facing what was my biggest fear in that moment, I stepped into a whole new way of living. And then I was like, wow, I can still live and survive and the world has not fallen apart. And I have shared this part with my husband. And then it's like, okay, what other part of my life am I afraid of? And I stepped into the fear of that. And it's like, wow, I stepped into the fear of something that I thought would consume me, and it hasn't. And then I would step into another part of my life that was fearful, and the same thing happened. And then you think you don't ever have to step into fear again. And what I've come to realize is that stepping into fear, like stepping into the fear of sharing with you tonight, what frightened me more was not actually stepping in to talk to you tonight. Because I have known people who have ended their lives because they've loathed themselves. They have had that depression, that black dog that they don't understand, because we are designed and we are hardwired to lean on something. And we will lean on drugs, we will lean on alcohol, we will lean on unhealthy relationships. We will lean, because we are designed to lean on something. But because I have now been able to plug in and lean on something inside of me that's so strong, it means that I'm able to show up and step into that fear. And so even though as frightening as it might be to talk about all of these things, it's more frightening to me that I wouldn't talk about them, because for too long people don't talk about things going wrong in marriage, and they don't talk about medication, and they don't talk about mental health. And it's a load of rubbish, because we are imperfect human beings. We're messed up. We're fucked up. We have so many things going wrong with us. It's hilarious. But actually, That's the joke, because we are here to be imperfect. There's not one person on this earth that isn't imperfect, because the moment that we have done what we came here to do, we won't be here anymore. And so my message to you tonight is really, be willing to look into the mirror and see the imperfect parts of yourself. Because once you're able to look at them, and once you're able to start to accept them, you're one step closer to finding your very own best friend. Now, everybody benefits from that. When I think about it, I've got some very dear friends in here tonight, and it's a miracle that they're actually in here tonight from some of the way that I used to behave, I think, as a friend, because I was so consumed in keeping this secret going that I wasn't probably there all the time. And so the more work that you do inside, they actually get a better friend back. Because what is a best friend? Someone who is trustworthy, someone who is loyal, someone who is willing to, as I had, willing to share with you something that you don't want to hear, but you need to hear. Someone who thinks you're very funny even when you're not. Someone who doesn't care what you do. It's that they just see something in you that they love. And that opportunity to start to observe how friends reacted and how they were when they met me. What did it feel like to have a hug from me? What did it feel like to have a smile from me? What did it feel like for me to listen to me? And those are the things that I was not doing for myself. And it was a tequila moment. Alcohol's not all bad. It was a tequila moment after a very wonderful trip on a girls' trip that I discovered by looking in the mirror on a boat in London on a very weird corporate night, that there was somebody looking back at me in the mirror, and it was that weird kind of feeling. And people get this feeling on drugs, I guess, but I had it with tequila. And looked in the mirror, and it was almost like it wasn't my reflection, it was a person looking back at me, and she was just smiling at me. And that was the moment that I thought, God, I could actually have a conversation with myself. I could actually maybe make friends with that person. She seems really nice. She seems very certain when I wasn't. Now that was a flash, and that was, a tiny flash, but it sparked something. It sparked something inside of me that I was curious for. And so my prayer to the universe was, tell me who I am and why am I here? Tell me who I am and why am I here? And I think that everybody in this room tonight has got a similar, quest. Why am I here? Why am I here on this earth? What am I here to do? What is my purpose? And people can get so hung up on thinking that it has to be something very grand and that it will come from outside themselves, or it's the work that they'll do. And it's actually, I don't think any of those things. I think you're here to love and cherish who you are. You're here to just experience and give to yourself the very things that you would give to a little 4-year-old child. Because when you do that, you then spread a love that goes outside of you that actually does more than anything else that you can do. So, having been brought up as a Catholic, it was all about outside of me. I don't know if anyone here from other religions has other experiences. But what I've come to discover, and what I would encourage you to seek, is that, what if it actually is never outside of you? What if that person is actually deep, deep inside of you? And that you could actually tap into her, and all you have to do is follow what she guides you to do, and she'll take care of the rest. She'll take care of the rest. So, because of, again, what is the message to you is, if you can tap in to your inner voice, that is something very special. And in fact, you won't ever need a guru, or you won't ever need anything else. And the coaching that I do on a one-to-one basis and in groups, I very much hope, my intention is always that they don't need me, because they have discovered that inside of them. And if anyone does see me for more, it's because they just want to go a bit more. But there's a time when, it's just, you've got to go into your own inquiry. And So I don't know if anyone in this room relates to being, you walk into a room and you just feel, things just don't quite feel that right, or you see that kind of feeling going on. Well, that is the sign of an empath. It's a sign of someone who senses something outside of themselves, but they think it's about, you think it's about you. And it will rarely be about you. What that is your gift to be able to feel other things. And so everything that you're absorbing from outside is really just feedback as to what you're picking up. So being able to listen to that reaction inside of your body, I think, is one of the most loving acts of kindness that you can do to yourself, is to tap in to that inner voice. And that was something that had happened with me the entire time. I would go with a friend and do something and it'd be like, oh, it doesn't feel very good. I would snog someone before, right? And, it's like, oh, that doesn't feel very good. But you've got all these conditions and beliefs that are guiding you, that you think you should do, that you ignore this inner knowing inside. And being your own best friend is simply tuning in to that inner voice. As I said earlier, you are designed to lean on something. My plea to you is to start to lean on your own counsel, to lean on the whispers of your heart, to lean right in to the very essence of who you are, because she is so much more wise than you give her credit for. He is so much more wise than you'll give him credit for. And they have a deep, deep knowing that everything that is happening to you is actually happening to you for a reason. It is so easy for us to get caught up in the story of who we are. And even when I'm standing here sharing with you my story, there are many, many moments of my life that, because I was disconnected from Source, I didn't even see. Beautiful moments of somebody smiling at me, beautiful moments of someone laughing at a joke, beautiful moments of someone worrying about me or just caring about me. But when you're in that fog of disconnected and you think that nobody likes you, the self-esteem is very low, you can miss it. And so in that exercise of coming right back to the present moment, it gives you an opportunity just to pause and just question your story. Because what if the story wasn't even true? And that is the blessing that I discovered 6 years ago, when suddenly I realized every single thing in my life had been created by me. By me. All the stories I told myself had been by me. That I wasn't pretty enough, that I wasn't smart enough, that I wasn't posh enough, that I wasn't creative enough, that I wasn't trendy enough, that I was unlikable, that I was unlovable, all of these inner demons. And I realized that is what happened, that had been happening for generations and generations. That my parents had this, I'm not enough, that their parents had this, I'm not enough. And we create an experience as human beings where we are victims of victims of victims of victims. Until we get to a point where we can just stop. And that is why being your own best friend now is so very, very important, because everything happens in the now and in this moment. If we don't start to be our own best friends, what are our children are going to have to pick up the pieces after that. And if they aren't brought up to love and cherish who they are, their children are going to have to pick up the pieces of it. And we have got a certain amount of time on this planet. It's a very, very, very precious time. And I realized that I had been given an opportunity to just pause and to decide, do I want to keep creating the life that doesn't serve me anymore, where I have no idea what I want to do with my life, that I think I can't do anything? Or do I just want to start to consider that maybe I could? And the way that I was able to do that, and the reason that I've created this place and what all of this has come about, is simply by allowing myself to play, to just take any expectations of what I think I should be doing with my life and what is socially acceptable and what is going to be the most amount of kudos or whatever. And I just allowed myself to play, and I got out of my own way. And I accepted that rather than being able to paint a masterpiece, I could draw a flower. I could draw a flower. And I started to actually draw a flower. And from that moment of starting to draw a flower and accepting that all I could draw was a flower, something very beautiful grew and grew and grew and grew. So in order to take a step into loving and cherishing who you are more, it is accept exactly who you are right now. Accept everything that has ever happened to you, that you accept who your parents are, because I believe you pick them, and you pick them because it is exactly where you need to be able to get the best, experience, to be able to do what you came here to do. And by accepting all of that, you will have energy to start to just follow your heart and do whatever floats you up. But you have to give yourself permission to do that. So you have to give yourself permission to admit that you might like something that somebody else doesn't like. You might want to spend, days watching Vampire Diaries. That might be what floats you up. You might want to, go country and western dancing. That might be what floats you up. You might want to smoke every night after dinner because that is what you need to do. And as long as you're not beating yourself up for whatever it is that you're doing, whatever choices that you're making, you are taking a step further to discovering and being that best friend to you. And then because you're being that best friend to you, you are then able to hold the space for the people in your life that you absolutely love. Now, I thought that if I showed my friends my flaws, they wouldn't want to be my friends. And I thought if I showed my husband my darkest side, he wouldn't want to be my partner anymore. And if I showed myself my darkest sides, my darkest horribleness, bitchiness, that I would combust. But what I discovered when I realized that, yeah, I'm pretty selfish sometimes. Yeah, I'm pretty mean sometimes. Yeah, I want more. When I started to be compassionate about those things and started to nurture the person inside of me that wanted more, suddenly the smile that I was wanting to put out there, which was absolutely fake, became real. It became effortless to smile because my perspective had totally changed. And I was given a very valuable lesson by a wonderful soul pastor. She said, Bernie, what other people think of you is none of your business. And it was so enlightening because I had spent most of my life worrying what other people thought of me. I worried about how I spoke, how whatever, and I don't know if any of you can relate to that, where you're so paralyzed wondering what people think of you that you just stop being. And going back to the energy that we expend in comparing, it's really hard to be somebody else because actually it's impossible. So you waste so much energy trying to be like the person, in the magazine, or the person who was really smart in class, and you get yourself into such a twist. And actually it creates relationships that people cannot connect with you. So me not being willing to be myself was actually keeping me from what I deeply desired. I really wanted to have connection. I wanted to have deep, soulful conversations. I wanted to really go in deep and just laugh my head off and not worry about what someone else was thinking next door. But the only way that I was able to do that was to finally give myself permission to be me. Now I read an article by Dr. David Hamilton the other day, and he said, and he nailed it on the head, he said, everyone talks about, and I have one of the slogans here says, be yourself, everyone else is taken. Just be yourself. Have you all heard that? Just be yourself. Just be yourself. But for all of us, because of our belief systems, we have no freaking idea who we are. We have none. Because we actually, the beliefs and the things that we're reacting to aren't even ours. And what I talked about earlier, that we are sponges up until the age of 10, you literally are programmed, completely programmed to behave, think, do whatever up until that age. And that's why teenagers start to really act out. Have you noticed your teenage children? I have 2. And they have to reject every single thing that you have. And they are currently rejecting every single thing that I have to offer. And it's such a wonderful thing because they will discover for themselves their own truth. So what I'm trying to tell to you tonight is it's not, you don't have to believe my truth. It is not about that. You don't have to believe anything that I say. But I just choose now to live my life a certain way. And I choose to believe that everything happens for a reason, that what other people think of me is none of my damn business, and that everything is possible if I reach and allow myself to dream for it. And it is so much more liberating than anything that I could have done before that was surrounding me and surrounding me. So going back to questioning everything that you were taught, if anything that you hear from a belief system stops you from actually just taking a step into your dream, isn't it worth questioning? Isn't it worth pausing and going, really? Is that really something that I want to do now? Is that something that is going to serve me? Is that something that, is that really it? Is that all that I can do in this situation? Or is it useful to start to question it? And the resources that I use in my coaching is we question, is it true? And there's a wonderful, wonderful resource out there that will say that. But Dr. David Hamilton was talking about be yourself. The main thing his message was, it's not about necessarily trying to be yourself, it's about allowing yourself to take a mask off. And that is where the practice comes in. I had all my masks revealed or taken off in that moment, but very quickly, even in the priory, I realized that within 2 or 3 days, I had put another mask on again, because I didn't want someone else to see any vulnerability. And my quest for the last 6 years is to very gently take another layer of mask off, and very gently take it off. And so taking a mask off is a bit like just saying to somebody, that's not for me, actually. That doesn't agree with me. And that is why going back into tapping into what feels right, into your body, is the only way that you will be able to allow yourself to take a mask off, rather than just thinking I'm just going to be myself. Allow yourself to be guided by what feels right for you. And if it doesn't feel right for you, if you say yes, you've put your mask on. And if you are willing to say, actually no, you have very successfully just taken off another mask. And I think that is worth doing. And I think it's worth investing in. And I think it's worth fighting for that. It's worth fighting to, and you have that battle within yourself often. I have it all the time. That's this constant battle of, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I was wearing that mask. And one of the things that I struggled with after the priory was, I'm now a very spiritual person. I am now very zen. And if I was to bump into somebody in the co-op and they saw me argue with my children, well, that wouldn't be very zen, would it? And I remember a very dear client said to me, you're quite different when you're doing the meditation thing than you are when I see you in the co-op. And it's like, oh, really? Oh, that's not very good, is it? But actually, it's impossible. Because that was a real clue to me that there's so much, this conditioning that I was talking about, this mental programming is so strong in us that unless we are fully, fully present with what is actually happening right now, we have no idea who is in charge of what comes out of our mouth. None. And I heard a wonderful demonstration of that when, Eckhart Tolle talks about you can be fully present for maybe sometimes 30 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, and then it's not you, and it's your programming that comes in. And so my quest over the last 5 or 6 years is to rewrite that programming. And I started that in 2 ways. Lots of sea swimming, lots and lots of sea swimming, just seems to reignite the switches a thing and you come out fresh and you come out very you. But also listening to audio tapes where I was being programmed to love and accept who I was. And I was doing this all in the process of healing, because I realized that yes, you're now connected and that's all very good, but actually if you don't do the work, you're going to keep running away from what's frightening, because you got here by stepping into the fear, but fear is never, ever, 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 ever going to go away. And anytime you want to grow a bit further, you actually have to step into that fear. And the programming that we have is so, so strong that unless we are willing to step into that fear again, we do not forge new neural pathways. Because the moment we get stopped by our fear, we freeze. And the version of us that is just there, floating, ready for us to step into, just kind of hangs out and waits. She'll come back to me eventually. She'll come to that crossroads again. He'll get to that decision that he has to make, and he'll either go into the fear zone or he'll run away. But he will be back. You will be back to face whatever it is that feels most frightening. And that is why being your own best friend is so essential. Because think about when you've done something really scary and you've had a really, really great friend with you. You've had the courage to step into it. Or when you've done something that you were so excited about and you wanted to scream and celebrate, and you've had that best friend with you and you were able to do it and you give yourself permission. Well, if you can go inside of you, you get to have her there 24/7. And you can do the happy dances on the exciting things. You can just allow yourself to just, celebrate you. You can have the courage to make a difficult call, to say something very difficult to somebody that you have been holding back from saying. And that is something that has taken for me, and it will take for me my entire life, because I know that I will step into something. I'll be at a crossroads, I will feel fear, and I will run away. I know I will. I absolutely know I will. But I also know that I'm going to come right back to that exact same situation in a different form, different players maybe, but representing the same fear. And so when people talk about this, you've got all these skeletons you have in your cupboard and I don't want to go there. I think my plea to you is they're not going to go away, and they are actually not nearly as scary as you might think. Your inner critic is making them out to be so scary. Now, I could have chosen not to step into the fear of telling my husband that I had, messed up, telling a business partner or failing to tell a business partner that it wasn't for me. I either will step into it and I crashed. And if I don't do those things again and again and again, and in the last few years I've been challenged to continue to do that more. If I don't step into it, life is fine, it's safe, but it's not nearly as exciting as it is if you step into it. And I know there's a lot of people here who are doing very, very courageous things in their lives, and they're making real changes. And what you have to realize is that every time you do that, you are shining a light for your children to do that. You're shining a light for friends to do that. You're shining a light for the rest of the world to do that. And rather than focusing on trying to change the world, you've actually just changed you. And that is so powerful. And that is something that actually, if we just keep that focus inside of us, we're good. We're good. We just get to enjoy it, live it, but we're living it truthfully. And my lovely husband gave me this book, With Freedom, Books and Flowers, The Moon, Who Could Not Be Happy? And I used to think that was out of my reach. I thought that I would never be free from my shame. But I am. And it feels like someone has given me a whole level of living that I could never be. Now, there will be more shame inside of me that is due to come out, but it's like it will never stop me from stepping into it anymore, because the fear of not stepping into it just isn't acceptable anymore. It's just a quality of life that just, it's not what I came here for. I came here to shine, and you came here to shine. So whatever it is for you that you want to reach for, that you want to, go inside of yourself to do, trust that it will be okay You don't have to do the whole, I mean, I'm a really stubborn person, and I obviously put out this booty call to say, I want to know who I am, and I want to know now. And I was like crash and burn and painful. It doesn't have to be like that. I've learned now to dial it down, to say, make it as gentle and as comfortable in some ways as you can. Make it, make it just sort of a nice discovery, another layer coming off. It doesn't have to be, a complete annihilation of knowing who you are. But, that's how I roll, and that's the way it was for me. But that doesn't have to be the way it is for everybody. What you take away from tonight is that, you are awesome. You are incredible. You have so much to give, and it is worth you following your heart. Are you waiting for permission to shine? Are you waiting for permission to do what lights you up? To hear it's time, to hear that you're divine? Are you waiting for permission to shine? Are you waiting for permission to write that killer song, or stay in bed and make love all day long? Maybe you love painting, maybe it's guitar, or maybe it's the desire to wander afar. Maybe it's to raise your hand and say, hey, look at me. Or maybe it's simply permission to be. Whatever permission you seek, the answer is now clear. Permission is granted once you overcome your fear. Fear of being rejected, laughed at or deplored may keep you feeling safe, but your heart will feel ignored. But what if fear's your signal? It's a sign that you are near. Just take one step after another, and it will all become clear. If you give yourself permission to have a little play, allow your heart to guide you, listen to it say, explore, my darling, you may. The only permission that you ever need is granted by your heart, and it shines the big green light in the moment that you start. Thank you so much for coming tonight, and for enabling me to face fear and step into this lovely well of love that I feel.